In the early 20th century, battleships were the kings of naval warfare. With their thick armor and massive firepower, these behemoths were designed to engage enemy fleets in decisive battles, such as Jutland during World War I. By the end of World War II, however, battleships had been relegated to secondary roles, and countries were discarding their partially constructed ships before they were put into service. What caused this centuries-old naval tradition to come to an abrupt end? Perhaps more than any other threat, the development of aircraft had a profound effect on the design of post-World War I battleships. By the early 1920s, the effectiveness of strike aircraft was becoming apparent, and it led to a rash of experiments with bomb and torpedo-carrying planes. Billy Mitchell, a brigadier general in the U.S. Army Air Service, was one of the most vocal supporters of air power during this period. Mitchell arranged a series of tests to demonstrate that aircraft could effectively destroy battleships. As part of these tests, decommissioned ships, including surplus American battleships and captured German warships, were to be bombed to see how much damage aircraft were capable of. Mitchell's squadrons proved that if allowed an unrestricted number of attempts, they could indeed seriously damage and ultimately sink large battleships using only aerial bombardment. Despite the apparent success of his demonstrations, Mitchell faced severe criticism and opposition. Critics pointed out that the stationary ships were unable to dodge the bombs and were not firing at the oncoming planes. Furthermore, without a crew, it was impossible to control damage by sealing the holes and extinguishing the fires, as would be done in actual combat situations. Further tests conducted in 1924, during which the U.S. battleship Washington withstood every bomb thrown against her, demonstrated that the days of battleships were far from over. In reality, and with the benefit of hindsight, it became evident that the tactics employed were flawed. Level bombing was fundamentally imprecise due to the technological limitations at the time. With the advent of the dive bomber and fast torpedo-carrying planes by the beginning of World War II, this would eventually change. By the mid-1930s, aircraft were the single most important influence on battleship design, both as an aid to fleet action and reconnaissance role, as by this time battleships were typically fitted with catapults for float planes, and as a threat in the form of dive bombers and torpedo planes. This threat was responsible for the installation of enhanced anti-aircraft batteries aboard capital ships and the evolution of medium-caliber dual-purpose guns. One of Japan's most illustrious naval strategists, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, predicted that battleships would be as effective in future naval conflicts as samurai swords. Yet as World War II started, very few believed that naval warfare would be decided by anything other than the battle line, as it had at Jutland 3 decades earlier. However, as the war progressed and the threat posed by aircraft became more apparent, short-range light anti-aircraft guns with high rates of fire were rapidly deployed in ever-increasing numbers, clogging the topside space of battleships, reflecting the desperate measures required to maintain the battleship's viability. Improvements in aircraft and submarine performance, along with early 20th century developments in torpedo technology, accelerated the battleship's decline as the dominant force in naval combat. Torpedoes now had better propulsion systems and gyroscopic guidance mechanisms, which improved torpedo range and reliability, increasing the likelihood of a hit, while the use of superior explosives in greater quantities increased lethality. The vulnerability of battleships to submarine attack was demonstrated early in World War II, when several iconic Royal Navy battleships were sunk by submarines. Just a few months into the war, a German U-boat sank the HMS Royal Oak at Scapa Flow, while the HMS Barham exploded in the Mediterranean, killing 861 men, demonstrating that even the mightiest could be sunk by this hidden enemy. Through his vision and leadership, Yamamoto was able to turn aircraft carriers from auxiliary support ships into the most powerful naval strike force, thereby changing the face of naval warfare. He recognized early on the potential of naval air power and understood that the future of naval warfare would increasingly hinge on air superiority.
It's 6 o'clock in Paradise on a Sunday celebration.
Yamamoto's devastating attacks on Pearl Harbor showed that significant advancements in aircraft carrier design and operation in the early 1940s had left no safe place for battleships to hide or operate. The Battle of the Coral Sea, fought in May 1942, was a groundbreaking encounter in naval warfare because for the first time in history, no ships came within sight or gun range of each other. Instead of ships firing directly at each other, planes from opposing carriers attacked distant enemy ships. This approach underscored the strategic importance of air superiority, making it an unprecedented form of combat. It brought about a significant change in the way naval combat was conducted and prepared the way for the strategies that would dominate the Pacific theater during World War II. With these advancements, naval doctrines that had been centered on battleships gave way to strategies that were centered on carriers. Due to their ability to project force over vast distances and achieve naval dominance without the need to engage in direct ship-to-ship combat, aircraft carriers became the new capital ships of the world's navies, relegating battleships to secondary roles of shore bombardment and anti-aircraft platforms. The age of the battleship came to an end not because of a single innovation, but as a result of a series of technological advancements and strategic shifts that transformed naval warfare. Air power determined the outcome of campaigns in pivotal battles in the Pacific, demonstrating the rapid evolution of aircraft capabilities that led to the obsolescence of battleships. Modern submarines and carriers provided the power, range, and versatility that battleships could no longer match. During World War II, the vulnerability of these mighty vessels to submarine attacks and precision aerial strikes exposed their limitations in a new era of warfare that continues to this day.
If you liked this video, there are many similar high-quality videos on my channel.